And I understand here we have about 3 people. The first on the list, and maybe I'll just leave it up to you, Gulnaz, to continue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamal, for the
Sure.
introduction. So welcome back, everybody. So we want to start with the next paper, which is a deviant choice, Emirati women married to non-Emirati locals, a legal and an anthropological perspective by Dr. Leslie Vandeputte. I hope that I pronounce it well, and
It's
several co-authors from American University in the Emirates, UAE. Please, Dr. Leslie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline Malaeb, and along with my wonderful colleagues, Dr. Leslie Vandeputte and Ms. Cassiana Pascario, we are honored and proud to participate in this conference to celebrate Arab women who are really the agents of change, progress, crossing the frontiers and breaking all of these shackles. Thank you for the organizing committee for such an event. We represent the American University in the Emirates in the UAE. Now, over the past 2 decades, Emirati women have experienced a tremendous progress in terms of rights, higher education, and professional opportunities. This new milestone to gender equality did not, however, completely address marital laws and rights, where a gap still exists between men and women. Today, our presentation shines a light on the situation of Emirati women who are married to foreigners or non-citizens of Emirates. The purpose of this research is to understand and study at different levels, legal, familial, sociological, the case of Emirati women marrying foreigners. The research will scrutinize those women's real experiences by examining their choice, which is considered as deviant from the UAE and from the nation's perspective as a whole. Using a combination of both the legal framework, laws, regulations, as well as ethnographic data of lived real experiences, our research is twofolded. On one side, we aim at understanding the rights of Emirati women who married non-Emirati citizens in terms of legacy, citizenship, property, transmission. On the other side, from an anthropological and sociological perspective, we aim and we focus on their relationship with their family, culture, and more broadly speaking, their social identification to the nation state itself, the UAE. At the end of our presentation, and based on our findings, we aim to provide culturally sensitive recommendation to the UAE government in relation to this social change, Emirati women marrying non-citizens. The research questions that were addressed, they addressed 2 aspects. The first question that was discussed and looked at throughout the paper is what are the rights of those Emirati women who married non-Emirati citizens in terms of legacy, citizenship, property transmission. The second question, which was examined, what relationships Emirati women who married non-Emirati citizens have with their family and, more broadly speaking, with the society and the culture and the country itself. In order to answer those questions, we conducted 6 in-depth interviews with Emirati women married to non-Emirati men. Those women were between 21 and 60 years old. Now, each interview lasted up until 2 hours. Furtherly, we interviewed 6 offsprings of those mixed marriages, 4 of which were females and 2 were males, aged from 18 to 38 years old. Finally, we managed also to interview 3 lawyers who are experts in marriage law in the UAE. Since we really had a tight time frame, all these interviews were carried out in the past months. As such, we're planning to conduct around 20 to 30 more interviews before submitting the final paper in order to have a more valid and inclusive, significant data to analyze from. I would like to add that we consider those Emirati women whom we interviewed to be the agents of social change and progress in UAE. And yes, because of the pandemic, all of our meetings and interviews looked like this. All interviews were conducted via Microsoft Teams. The names of our informants remained confidential at all times. To start with the topic, it is important to know the law. The first part we will be looking at is the Constitution, the law, and the definition of marriage in UAE. Under Article 7 of the Constitution, UAE adopts Islam as its official religion, where Islamic Sharia is the main derivation of law. Marriage and family institutions follow the Islamic principles and laws stated under the Quran. The Quran does not, however, specify that a woman should marry a Muslim man. Nevertheless, all schools concur that the contract is nullified if the man is non-Muslim. Furtherly, Article 47 of the UAE personal status law, it affirms that Muslims cannot marry non-Muslims. The man, on the other hand, can marry from any other religion from Ahl al-Kutub. Hence, he is not restricted to marry a Muslim woman. This does not pose a problem to all the Emirati women that we have interviewed, not at all. All women interviewed did not have any conflict with the law mentioned. They believed in the fairness of the law since it is a prerequisite for them to rear their children based on the Quran. Hence, it's totally fine to marry non-Emirati, but other problems arise, which my colleagues will be mentioning later on. I would like to mention what Dr. Maher Al-Banna, who is also an associate professor in the College of Law in AUE, states. Emirati women married to non-locals have the same rights as any other Emirati woman, but the foreign spouse should be a Muslim. Otherwise, the marriage cannot be registered in UAE. So getting married again to a non-Emirati is totally fine. I will give now the floor to my colleague, Ms. Cassiana Pescario, who will be discussing citizenship, property transmission, offspring, and socio-marital changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Caroline. My name is Cassiana Pescario. Hello from the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. And I will continue with the second part of analyzing our data, discussing the Emirati woman rights in the UAE, marrying non-citizens. We divided this part in 4 different sections: property transmission, offsprings, social marital changes, and citizenship. So prior to 2011, an Emirati woman who married a non-citizen had to sign a paper declaring that she will never request any benefits or the citizenship for her foreign husband and children. In 2011, we got adopted laws that the government of UAE passed, stating that now an Emirati woman can actually transmit her citizenship to her husband and children, even if they're not Emiratis. Half of our informants came from mixed marriages where their Emirati father or mother were married to non-citizens. 2 of our informants, born and raised in the Emirates of Emirati mothers, took 14 and 22 years to actually become citizens. One of our informants just became a citizen in 2017, even though his mother applied after they got married with her father 30 years prior. And it took 6 years even after this law passed, even though his father came from one of the cousin nations with the UAE, Bahrain, the GCC region. Being Emirati means that you're going to have a higher salary, and locals are paid much higher wages than expats. I will refer back to this. The next slide. Why do I actually have to mention this? A woman still needs the approval of a male guardian to actually marry, which is called the wali in Arabic, compared with an Emirati man who can marry a second, third, or fourth wife without even the approval of his first wife by law. So when it comes to the property transmission, our informants felt that they were protected by Sharia law, and Sharia law made things easy and clear when it comes to transmission. One of our informants, Enam, had the wealth was divided after her mother passed away, and she had no issues when this wealth was divided because of the Sharia law. On the other hand, Amina was disowned by her own father in 2009 as she committed a deviant act by marrying her Syrian husband. Amira, her father, her Emirati father, extended family, never recognized her brother, or her mother because her father married her Egyptian mother. So there was no wealth to be transmitted on the first place. So when her father passed away, her mother was forced to move in one of the villas from the Abu Dhabi government, and she's on the alimony from the UAE government, as she's a citizen of the UAE. Enam, because of her Iranian father, she's not considered to be part of her tribe. She has no tribe protection, and she declared herself as tribeless. At the age of 14, when she became a UAE citizen, after 14 years of having no papers, the law asked her to actually drop her name, her last name, as it was not Emirati and it was Iranian. Having a tribe protection means prestige, and having prestige means property transmission, generational property transmission. Because of the situation of our informants, they have very Western views of how they see their relationship. They're okay not to have very lavish weddings, and they're okay not to have a very high amount of dowry. Even more, they're absolutely okay to work and actually provide half of their finances of the house for them to also be part of it. One of our informants, as I mentioned the previous slide, she was Emirati. She was earning way much more money than her husband. And the way she was the one who was always in charge of providing for her family. And the way she dealt with making sure that she's not demasculizing her husband was that she gave him the power over the finance to pay bills and to know how much money they have in the house. When it comes to the offspring of the Emirati woman married to the 9 citizens, we again divided this into 4 different sections. When it comes to the dress code, it seems that wearing abaya, hijab, sheila, and kandura, it's extremely important in order for you to be identified as an Emirati and to be associated with the Emirati culture. Most of our informants were actually forced by their father at a very young age to wear abaya and sheila. Half of them are not wearing it right now. Only when they have to go to the governmental buildings or they have social events with the family. When it comes to religion, all of our informants associate themselves with Islam, and they consider it to be extremely important for their spouses to also have the same belief system as Islam. All of our informants believe that their children needs to be raised in the Islamic values as they were, including we only had one informant who was atheist, and she still believed that without having the Islamic values, my kids could actually be lost in the world, as I'm stating her. We learned that through our research that acquiring the UAE citizenship is not enough. And you need to have the family book. I just saw the comment of Jessica. You need to have the family book and the tribe association, which is important in order for you to actually feel full recognition and the benefits of being Emirati, such as social welfare from the government, Sheikh Zayed housing, alimony until you're 18, alimony if you become a widower or you become divorcee, free healthcare, access to local schools only for Emiratis, free tuition including at the university level, tribe name for generational property transmission, and most importantly, the feeling of belonging and being part of the Emirati culture. Without the family book and the tribe association, the offsprings actually can suffer a lot, and they can face many issues throughout their life, and they can even lose their passport, the UAE passport, if they don't have this too. We only had one offspring who actually applied for the Sheikh Zayed housing, and she was denied. She was never giving a clear explanation of why. On the other hand, we have another Emirati woman married to a non-citizen her children are Americans. And her children have access to free healthcare and have access to the local schools, even though they don't have the Emirati papers, but they know that their mother is Emirati. Our informants associate themselves with the Emirati culture, and they want their children to recognize this half of their identity. Pluralism is what our informants hope. The offsprings of our informants are aware and they recognize their Emirati culture as well as the other side, being Bahrainian, Iranian, Egyptian, Syrian. Our informants celebrate this by speaking both languages or both dialects of Arabic, of their plural identity. And they see this as an important skill, not something deviant, coming from a mixed marriage. There is a change in the demographic of the marriages in the UAE. And the statistics are showing that this is not going away. In 2018, 25 of the marriages in the UAE were between Emirati men and non-Emirati women, 57% only in Dubai. In 2019, we had 1,246 marriages between Emirati women married to non-citizens, compared to 931 in 2017. So even though we have this clear social change, our informants, Emirati women married to the non-citizens, and the offsprings coming from the mixed marriages, still face discrimination, disapproval from their family members and the society, and sometimes a feeling of not belonging. From school bullying, teachers and peers alike, to governmental institutions. Thank you so much. Dr. Leslie, you have the floor.
Thanks, Ms. Kassiana. So my name is Leslie Vandeputte, and I will now talk about Emirati women and UAE nation. The enforcement of nationalism in the Middle East is recent, as it developed during the 20th century. From a scattered socio-political tribal context, the concept of nation-state has been imposed to UAE nation. Indeed, the Federation of the United Arab Emirates was created in 1971. And since then, the state plays a central and key role in promoting a sense of national identity and ensuring strong and cohesive ties between local Emirati. There is therefore a strong connection between UAE nation, national identity, and the state. Governmental authorities have been eager to promote nationalism and to create that sense of national identity through governmental promotion and control of history, culture, heritage, and tradition, as well as through the reinforcement of national symbols. Arab Bedouin community is promoted as being the only unique Emirati culture here in the country. There is another specificity that you might know about the United Arab Emirates, is that the local population, the Emirati population, constitutes approximately 10% of the total population of the country, which makes the Emirati nationals demographically a minority. And contradictory to a popular image of homogenized society that is often portrayed of UAE, but also other Gulf countries, it exists internal hierarchies among Emirati citizens. First, there is a competition between tribes, that was prior to colonialism. And second, there is a competition between immigrant communities who resided in the country before the Union, so before 1971, and have been naturalized after coming originally from other places, such as India, Pakistan, and especially Balochistan, Yemen, Iran, Oman, and so on. So within this context, women are often presented as the base of UAE nation and UAE identity. It raises here a question: does UAE nation allow its female citizens to feel individually Emirati without social and cultural pressure and outside the cultural context? UAE women marrying non-Emirati locals seem to crystallize a state contradiction. On one side, the state promotes women and gender equality in UAE laws, like my colleague Ms. Caroline mentioned. But on the other side, women should also conform to cultural and religious expectations, behavioral expectations. So depending on family history, the attachment to the nation of our informant varies, from a very strong attachment to even rejection of the nation. We have, for instance, Farah, who said, "My late husband was from Bahrain. My first condition was to live in Dubai. I love my country." Farah never felt mixed. She said her social identity was always Emirati. She has a very strong sense of loyalty towards the nation and a very strong attachment also. We should mention here that Farah comes from a very wealthy Bedouin family. We also have Amina, that I'm going to quote now. She said, "My husband was totally fine to live in Dubai. We totally agreed to raise our family in UAE. Our children will get citizenship and they will be Emirati." So for her as well, social and cultural identity is important, as well as living here in the country. And she has a strong desire to pass on her culture and to live here.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have just 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm almost done. Thank you. We have other profile of informants, and especially for women who come from mixed marriage and who experienced rejection from others during their childhood, like my colleague Ms. Kassiana mentioned. So they feel less attached to UAE symbols and culture. And for example, they do not want to wear the traditional dressing abaya. We have Amira saying, "You do not look Emirati." So she was referring to a comment that she often received from people. And she continues, "My accent, my body shape is always associated with Egyptian." We also have Inam, who said, "Look, she's not even local and she's wearing abaya." And here it's a comment that she often receives as well, coming from her colleagues or people when she decides to wear abaya. So based on a few observations and analyses that we made here, we would like to draw some conclusions and remarks. First, we have seen that the laws are perspicuous and UAE women, whether marrying a local or non-local, have equal rights to start a family. We also said that women did not have any conflict with the Article 47 about marriage. The offspring of mixed marriages got their UAE passport. However, we should mention here that it usually takes a lot of time. The national dressing, abaya, is considered as a strong marker of cultural and national identity, and this has been repeated many times by our informant. Just like Arabic language as well, and more specifically, Emirati dialect. Culturally, marrying a person from a different country is still perceived as deviant here in UAE society, and it's still perceived as abnormal. However, having the same religion does help the family to accept the woman's decision to marry a non-national. Based on those conclusions, please allow us to make two recommendations here. We could say that the procedure to receive the citizenship should be easier. As we mentioned, it takes quite some time and it's difficult for the offspring of Emirati women married to non-Emirati. And the second recommendation we would like to make is to raise awareness among the population on anti-bullying and tolerance towards family members, especially women who decided to marry outside of their culture. Here are some of the references that we used, and we would like to thank you all for your attention. Shukran.
Thank you so much. Let's give them an applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was an interesting topic. So I'm gonna move to Q&A. If you have any questions, so please just feel free to ask them.
Hello. Thank you all for this. This has been wonderful, very informative. I didn't know any of these struggles of Emirati women marrying non-citizens. One of your recommendations was to have an easier citizen process. Can you tell us a bit about the citizenship process as is? And perhaps the recommendations can be a bit clearer on what part of the process can be changed or facilitated. And I'm also interested to know how much it costs, because I know I just became a citizen in the US and it costs a big deal of money and a big deal of time. So perhaps a comparison or just a rough number would be okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Maybe Ms. Carolina or Ms. Cassiana, if you would like to answer.
First of all, congratulations for becoming a citizen. I hope you voted.
Yes.
I sure did. Yes, I did.
So basically, according to the personal status in UAE, an Emirati woman could pass her citizenship to her child, even if she married a non-local. So now the thing is, in 2011, they enhanced the law, and it was till he reached 18 years. Now he can get it at 6 years. So she just submits all the required documents. First of all, because she is Emirati, her child, so he gets de facto the citizenship from his mother. But the thing is, now the process is long. And here, once we asked our informants, like, we realized it is more connected to, first of all, the husband. So certain husbands from certain nationalities had longer, their offspring would take much longer time to get the citizenship. It can get up to 10 years. Others, for example, 2 years. Some 1 year. So by law, at 6 years, they can go submit all the documents and the child could have the citizenship.
But in practice, I would like to add to what Ms. Caroline said, but in practice, what we learned through our interviews is that this tribe protection seems to be detrimental to how, and it's tribe protection, that the tribe protection is also equals to wasta, like connections that you have. And it seems that it's kind of also up to the extended family and their connections, how fast you're gonna get. But what we learn is that an Emirati woman married to a non-citizen takes much longer time, even after this 2011 law passed, compared to an Emirati man married to a non-citizen. And when it comes to costs, sorry, because you asked about the costs, that's actually a good question, and definitely we should try to add this to our paper, but I'm not aware of any costs. I don't know if Dr. Leslie or Ms. Caroline, are you aware?
I believe it's free.
Yeah. Because it is de facto by woman. Exactly. So because she is citizen of UAE, she can pass her, that's the law that she can pass it to her children.
For free. Wow.
So yes, we can see that there are certain laws being now promoted to promote the woman in UAE. In practice, it varies between tribes, class, education even, and the husband himself. So from where are we talking? Are we talking from Arab sister countries like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, which is totally fine? Are we talking Eastern Europe? Are we talking United States? Are we talking Morocco, Egypt? So here comes the variation.
Yes, Dr. Wafa.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the great questions and great answers.
Interesting. Gulnaz, may I have a question? Ask a question?
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, we don't have enough time.
Interesting topic, but sorry for to be curious. Why you focused on this topic? What do you interest in this laws, Emirati laws, or about marriage or about mixed marriage? May I ask about this?
May I dare to just answer it? All of us, the three of us, are mixed marriages, even if that's nationality or race or. So I'm actually, my husband is Egyptian and I'm Romanian American. and
Oh.
I don't know if Miss Caroline or.
That's why.
So it was kind of a personal and also like a feminist
I
interest.
have a mixed marriage too.
And
Yeah.
basically, we wanted to look because it's happening the way these mixed marriages are rising in numbers in UAE, and no one is giving them any, like, there's no research made. So we wanted to have some research, and in order to promote this this topic, because those women want to be heard. They are part of the society, and we want to give them from an academic point of view, some literature and research to be based on.
Yeah, if I may add, sorry, I just wanted to add, and it also came from some of our students who came and talked to us, and they share with us their personal stories, and yeah, it was also a way, you know, to try to talk about this sensitive topic.
Thank you so much.
Very, very hot issue, actually. Very hot.
Yes. Okay. I actually would like also to add my voice, thanking the panel, thanking them also for the moral courage to talk about such a sensitive issue while maintaining a job at an Emirati university. Bravo, you know, to have this courage and to speak truth to power. All right.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
We don't have time really.
Yeah.
That's at the expense of the next one.